What's going on, everybody? Lil Chris here to bring another APA League match of mine, except this one is going to be 9-ball. It's been quite some time since I last published a 9-ball league match back on November 21st of 2019, and that's because my team had gotten to a point where they could no longer support me as a skill level 9. So I really didn't get to play any 9-ball league all through 2020. But now here in the spring 2021 session, we finally have a roster that does allow me to play as a skill level 9. And in today's video, I'm actually going to be up against another skill level 9, so this is going to be a race to 75. So let's see how I can do. So here's the first rack, and my opponent won the coin flip, so they'll be breaking first. And if you're wondering about that 9-ball rack, we had started right as a previous match had finished, and they had left the 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 balls still on the table. So we added the 10, 11, 12, and 13 to create what's called a dirty rack, where the 5 ball is now the new 1 ball, and the 13 ball is the new 9 ball. So there's nothing really different here. We still have to shoot the balls in numerical order. Now let's see how this first rack goes. Wow. My opponent starts off with an awesome break, making 4 balls on the break. And he does have a decent shot at the 5 ball to go into the bottom right corner pocket. I will be referring to the head of the table as the bottom half and the foot of the table as the top half. So we can see here it looks like the troubled ball is going to be the 7 ball. So let's see how my opponent tries to handle that. Okay, good shot there. My opponent has a shot at the 6 ball to go into the top right corner pocket. He also has an angle where he can try to push the cue ball over to the short rail and then come back out and maybe try to break apart the 7 and 13. And that's what he tried. Was able to clip the 13 ball. I think that allows him to at least see the 7 ball, so he might be able to shoot it into the top right corner pocket. But he undercuts the ball. Cue ball and 7 ball are working their way down towards this end of the table, and I am left with a fairly simple shot to play the 7 into the bottom right corner pocket. So I end up playing this shot with some topspin to push the cue ball over to the side rail so I can see the 11 ball for the top left corner pocket. And then with this shot here, I put some top right spin on the cue ball to try to flare the cue ball 3 rails around, so that way I can play the 13 ball in the same corner pocket as the 11 ball. But as you can see here, I didn't hit the cue ball hard enough. I just needed the cue ball to roll another couple of inches. I can still shoot the 13 ball. It's just a really thin cut shot. And I put a lot of right spin on the cue ball to avoid scratching in the side pockets. But you can see there, I put too much right spin on the cue ball, and I think it actually prevented the 13 ball from going in. And I've now left a free shot for my opponent to steal the last 2 points of the rack. It looks like he should be shooting this in the bottom right corner pocket. There we go. And that ends the first rack, and my opponent has the lead, 8-2. Now here's rack 2, and we're back to using a normal 9-ball rack. All right, this time my opponent breaks dry. Doesn't really leave me much of a shot on the 1 ball, and with where the 2 ball is at, I think I tried to bank this into the bottom right corner pocket and try to push the cue ball over to the short rail and then back over to the other side of the table for position on the 2 and the top left. I do think I have a little bit of top right spin on this cue ball. But I was unsuccessful at the bank, and I didn't even hit the cue ball hard enough because I wouldn't have had position on the 2. So at least I didn't leave much for my opponent to be able to do anything. It doesn't look like he has any type of bank shot that he could do. So it probably would be a good idea to try to do some sort of a defensive shot here. And that looks like what he was trying to do. He wanted the cue ball to be hidden behind the 7, but I do have a free shot at the 1 ball to go into the bottom left corner pocket. I do believe I try to get the cue ball right back where it's at so I can shoot the 2 ball into the top left. So I have a bit of top right spin on this cue ball. Just like so. And the 3 ball can go into the top right corner pocket. So I think with just some top spin, I try to push the cue ball over to the short rail and back out for a position on the 3. But as you can see there, I undercut the 2 ball and missed, and I didn't even hit the cue ball hard enough as I didn't get position on the 3. So again, a little fortunate. The 2 ball is not in a position where it can be made unless my opponent wants to try to cut the 2 ball all the way to the bottom left corner pocket. And actually, the more I think about it, it looks like it can go into the side pocket. I think the 6 ball might even help it. No, never mind. My opponent was able to cleanly shoot it into the side pocket. So good shot there. He at least can see the 3 ball, but what is he going to do with it? He could try to play a 3-9 combination and just end the rack. I'm not sure if that's actually what he intended on doing. It was a decent shot. It would have been a decent safety if I wasn't able to see the 3 ball. But I can shoot between the 4 and the 8. The 3 ball should be able to go into the bottom left corner pocket, and with some top left spin on the cue ball, I try to come around the 5 and 7 so I can see the 4 ball. But I failed at doing that as I ran into the 7 ball, and now the 8 ball is actually in between the cue ball and the 4 ball. So I'm going to have to do some sort of a kick shot here. And if memory serves correctly, I think I kicked to the short rail, and I'm actually trying to make the 4 ball into the side pocket using the 6 ball as a helper. And I actually almost kicked the 4 ball straight into the side pocket. And you can see now that I'm actually getting rather lucky with these leaves that I'm getting. My opponent's not really having any types of shots after my misses. So this is probably where you want to try to do another safety, unless you want to be aggressive and actually try to kick it in. And it looked like he tried to play a safety. I think he wanted to just thin the 4 ball over to the short rail and then just kind of masse the cue ball back towards the center of the table. So I have a free shot at this 4 ball. I just kind of stun the cue ball over to the side rail so I can shoot the 5 ball into the opposite corner pocket. Hit it just a little too hard. Now I have to try to push my cue ball over to the short rail and back out for position on the 6. I kind of would like the cue ball to be right where it's at after I shoot the 5 ball. But you can see I didn't really hit it hard enough, so now when I cut this 6 ball into the side pocket, my cue ball goes up table. So I put a little bit of left spin on the cue ball, so when it hits the short rail, it comes back down to play the 7 into the opposite side pocket. But as you can see, I hit the cue ball way too hard and scratched in the bottom left corner pocket. So that 6 ball is now a dead ball. Nobody gets that point. But with cue ball in hand here and the balls where they're at, my opponent should be able to clean this table up rather nicely. Cue ball even bumps into the 9 ball to make it a little bit closer to the corner pocket. I can only imagine here that my opponent will just draw the cue ball a little bit so he can shoot the 9. Okay, jacks up on the cue ball a little bit. Well, it doesn't really draw it back, but my opponent should be fine. This is a cuttable shot. And my opponent takes that one down, and I'm off to a really slow start. Now going into rack 3, my opponent is still breaking, and I'm trailing 6-13. Looks like my opponent switched to a side break. Got the 1 ball to fall into the side pocket and saw the 5 ball fall as well. Looks like he has a shot at the 2 ball for the bottom left corner pocket, but what is he going to do with the 3 ball? Okay, good shot on the 2 ball. 2 ball is going up and down the table. But he ends up being hooked behind the 6. So it looks like he might be able to kick the cue ball into the side rail and maybe play some sort of a 3-9 combination, or he can kick the cue ball into the short rail and make a legal contact on the 3 ball. The 3 ball will hit the 7, just not entirely sure what would happen after that. Oh, but my opponent takes an intentional foul trying to tie the 6 ball up into that clutter, but he hits it too hard and frees the 3 ball. So now I have ball in hand, and I'm actually going to try to separate this clutter more. I give myself a little bit of an angle here so I can stun into it and try to separate the 6, 7, and 9. And hopefully still get position on the 4. But you can see the 7 ball still stayed in my way. And I now have to kick the cue ball to the short rail. I put a little bit of right spin on the cue ball to make sure that I try to come around the 7 and make contact with the 4 ball. But not only did I miss once, but I missed the 4 ball twice. And so now with cue ball in hand, there are no more issues left on the table. So my opponent should be in a good spot here. You can see it looks like he's trying to plan his run out. Pushes the cue ball over to the short rail and out to the middle of the table. Has position for the 6 to go into the top right corner pocket. 7 ball is most likely going to go into the side pocket, maybe even the bottom right corner pocket. But with position like that, it'll definitely be going into the side pocket. You can just roll this in for position on the 8. Good shot there. 8 and 9 balls should be going into the same pocket. Oh, but he clips the 9 ball and moves it. I don't think that's what he wanted to do. Now it looks like he's going to have to bank the 9, I think. Oh, and what a shot. What a way to clean up the table, and my opponent maintains the lead. Now in rack 4, my opponent still has the break, and I am trailing by 15 points. I got to be able to start putting something together here. Okay, my opponent stuck with the side break, but he broke dry, and I do not have a shot at the one ball. In APA, you do not have the option to play a rollout after the break. So here I do kick the cue ball to the short rail with a little bit of left spin because I am kicking past the midpoint between the cue ball and the one ball, and I am trying to make that one ball into the side pocket. Okay, I'm successful. Cue ball bumps into the two ball and leaves me a bank shot. Three ball is sitting near the eight ball at the bottom left corner pocket for a 3-8 combination. I do have some left spin on the cue ball for this bank shot here, but I end up banking short. So another fortunate lead for me. My opponent is able to see the two ball. He should be able to cut this into the side pocket. He comes around, looks like he makes one last check. Make sure he feels comfortable cutting the ball and having an idea of where the cue ball is going to go. It looks like it should contact between the first and second diamond just above the corner pocket. Good try there, but an undercut, and he almost gets lucky and drops the 9 ball into the side pocket, but he still does get lucky because I don't have a shot at the 2 ball. So now I have to kick to the short rail again in order to try to make a legal hit on the 2 ball. So I'm successful there, but then I get unlucky and scratch. So now, with an open table, my opponent having cue ball in hand, this rack does not look good for me. You can probably see that the 2 ball will go into the top left corner pocket, and then most likely play the 3-8 combination. And I think after that, everything looks good for my opponent. Okay, there's the 2 ball. So here comes the 3-8 combination. Good follow-up position there to keep the 3 ball to go into the same pocket. 4 ball looks like it's going to go into the top right corner pocket. And probably just stun the cue ball off of the 3 ball. You can even use the side rail if you want to try to get a little closer to the 4 ball, or just do a direct stun and not touch the side rail. That looks like what my opponent did. Should be able to play a bit of a stop shot here for position on the 5. And it looks like, I don't know whether if my opponent wants to try to draw this back to play the 6 in the side or just allow it to roll forward a bit so he can play the 6 ball into the opposite top left corner pocket. Got some top spin on the cue ball. He does just roll it in, so the 6 ball will be going to the top left corner pocket. You can just roll that ball in for position on the 7 for the opposite corner pocket. Good shot there. Don't really think he wanted the cue ball to be on the rail like that. That cuts off access to be able to fully control the cue ball, but this should be fine. He can just shoot the 7 ball in and probably get position for the 9 ball in the bottom left corner pocket. Oh, hits it a little bit harder. Must have had some right spin on the cue ball. That was actually really well done. You can just push the 9 ball into the side pocket. And my opponent takes that rack down, increasing his lead and making this very hard for me. Now in rack 5, my opponent has increased his lead by 23. But this game is far from over. Okay, still going with the side break. My opponent makes the 8 ball and the 2 ball on the break. but he does not have a shot at the 1 ball. And looks like he's going to try to masse around the 9 ball. It's a good hit. 1 ball catches the rail, but sets itself up for the side pocket. Now, there really isn't an issue on this table here, so let's see what I can do. I just roll the cue ball into the 1 ball, so that way the cue ball just kind of rolls forward towards the middle of the table and should have a shot at the 3 ball. Just like so. So this is a bit of a cut angle here, so I have a little bit of topspin, so I can push the cue ball over to the short rail and back up table to get closer to the 4 ball. And here I think I do the same thing, a little bit of topspin so I can roll past the 6 and still be able to see the 5 ball. And then I think I play a bit of a stun shot with a little bit of left spin so I can catch the side rail and back out for the 6. Just like so. This rack is looking good for me. It's starting to come alive. Can play the 6 into the top right corner pocket with some topspin and push the cue ball over to the short rail and then back out for position on the 7. And I think I have a bit of a back cut angle. I'm not straight in on the 7, so all I try to do is just roll the ball in and get position for the 9 in the side pocket. Actually, that looked more like a stun shot, and I probably actually should have just rolled it in, but I can shoot the 9 ball into the side pocket. And I was able to catch a little bit of a gear there and take that rack down. Here we are with rack 6, and I'm finally going to get to break for the first time in this match, but I'm still trailing 16-33. Now, this is before I know everything that I currently know about the 9 ball rack. And the only way I try to break with this one here is to hit the 1 ball head on with a little bit of topspin and try to hold the cue ball in the middle of the table. You can see I almost made the 1 ball into the side pocket. You can see with the reaction of the cue ball, though, I had to have hit slightly to the right of center between the cue ball and the 1 ball, and then I ended up breaking dry. So my opponent gets to come to the table. He does not have a shot at the 1 ball, but he can at least see the 1 ball. So he's more than likely going to play a safety. So there you can get an idea of what he's planning on doing with the 1 ball. Okay, he was successful at his safety. The 4 ball does block my path to the 1 ball in order to make it into the corner pocket, but I do try to kick the cue ball off of the short rail and still make the 1 ball. Put a little bit of left spin on the cue ball so I can try to spin off the short rail into the 1 ball, but I catch the 1 ball too thick and they get a little luck off of the leave here. So my opponent doesn't have a shot at the 1 ball. He can at least hit it, so he's probably going to play another defensive shot. There you can see he banks the 1 ball towards the middle of the table and pushes the cue ball forward to get behind the 4 ball and the 6 ball. So I have to kick at the 1 ball again, except this time I'll be going to the side rail and kind of doing the same thing. I put a little bit of right spin on the cue ball so I can spin into the 1 ball off of the side rail. Make a legal hit. Look at the 5 ball, but no luck on that one. So now the 1 ball is a little bit more out in the open this time, but doesn't have a free path to a pocket. Looks like my opponent might have a couple of options on this one here, so let's see what he does. But it looks like he tried to play another defensive shot, but now the 1 ball is out in the open. And because the 5 ball is sitting in the bottom right corner pocket like that, I elect to play a 1-5 combination. I don't necessarily have to worry about the 1 ball as long as I can send it down towards that corner pocket, and the cue ball will go from one side rail to the other. Just like that. Automatic position on the 1 ball. Now, I shoot the 1 ball, and I do think I have a little bit of left spin on the cue ball because I try to have the cue ball land near the middle of the table for position on the 2. But you can see I hit it a little too hard, and the cue ball ends up right behind the 9 ball. So now I have to kick at the side rail again. So I think at least on this one, I don't use any side spin. I just try to kick at the midpoint between the cue ball and the 2 ball just so I can get a good hit. Kind of like that. And I end up getting lucky. Now I do bump into the 3 ball, or I think the 2 ball bumped into the 3 ball and it doesn't have a shot, so now I play a defensive shot. I have a little bit of topspin on the cue ball. I just send the 3 ball to the short rail and back towards the middle of the table while I push the cue ball behind the 8. So here my opponent's going to try to kick at the 3 ball, and he ends up scratching. So I have cue ball in hand. The table is now wide open. So it looks like I'm going to play the 3 ball into the side pocket, more than likely put some top spin on the cue ball to push the cue ball forward. I have position for the 4 in the top right corner pocket, and I'll probably play this with some top spin as well to get the cue ball to come off of the short rail and then back out for position on the 6 to go into the same pocket. Pretty much do the same thing here with just a little bit of top spin and just roll the 6 in. Now with the 7, I play this with a little bit of bottom spin and some right spin so I can play the 8 ball in the same pocket as the 7. And then with the 8 ball, I do believe I just roll this in. And the cue ball just naturally comes down towards the middle of the table. And I have position for the 9 ball in the bottom left corner pocket. And I take that rack down and I'm starting to close the gap. Now on rec 7, I'm breaking again and I've closed the gap by 7 points. Okay, good break there. A little too much topspin on the cue ball as it tried to push through the rack. I did make the 4 ball and the 7 ball on the break, but I do not have a shot at the 1 ball. So I'm going to try to kick the cue ball 2 rails. I'm going to go into the side rail first with a little bit of top left spin so I can come behind the 1 ball by hitting the short rail and then pushing the 1 ball back up table. Kind of like that, but I did not want the cue ball coming towards the middle of the table because now my opponent has a shot at the 1 ball. And you can see with the position of the 2 ball, it's more than likely that he's going to just roll the 1 ball into the corner pocket. Probably put a little bit of topspin on the cue ball so he can get behind the 2 for the opposite corner pocket. Just like that. And with the 3 ball sitting next to the side pocket, he'll more than likely just stun this off of the side rail. Well, that looks like he might be shooting the 2 in the side pocket, and that's going to cause the cue ball to drift over by the 5 ball. Okay, that's what he does. Bumps into the 5 ball. And like I said, with the 3 ball sitting in the side pocket like that, that's no big deal. He can just roll the 3 ball in, have the cue ball come off the side rail for the 5 in the opposite side pocket. 6 ball sitting down at the bottom rail here, so he'll probably put a little bit of draw on the cue ball. I don't know if he's going to use the side rail or not to get position on the 6. Okay, cue ball does touch the side rail. I don't think he wanted it to stop on the side rail because now he has limited access to controlling the cue ball. But the natural angle is going to cause the cue ball to come off the short rail and back up towards the 8 ball. And since he contacted the side rail, he must have had a little bit of left spin and actually hits the cue ball a little too hard. Bit of a tester here on the 8 ball. So let's see which corner pocket he chooses. Ooh, chooses the bottom right corner pocket and just barely misses it. Cue ball does come around to give him position for the 9. And the route that the cue ball took is basically the route that I'm going to make this cue ball take. I'm going to put some top left spin on the cue ball, cut the 8 ball into the bottom left corner pocket, and try to get it to go 2 rails, or get the cue ball to go 2 rails, possibly a 3rd rail for position on the 9. And as you can see, I hit the cue ball a little too hard and overran my position. And now I have to try to bank the 9 ball into the cross side pocket. So you see me using the measuring system that I demonstrated in my 1 rail banks and kicks video. I put a little bit of bottom left spin on the cue ball to control it from scratching. And I was able to take that rack down, and we actually split the points on that rack 5-5. Now going into rack 8, I'm still trailing by 7 points. This time it was my turn to have a really good break. I was able to make 4 balls on the break, and I do have a shot at the 1 ball. So you can see the 3 ball is sitting very near the 1 ball in the opposite corner pocket, so I'm just going to roll the 1 ball in with a little bit of topspin on the cue ball. Cue ball should come over to the short rail and just come back out for position on the 3. Switch to my left hand here so I can reach the cue ball. I think I put some top left spin on this one here to bring the cue ball back up table. Hit that just a little too hard, but I do have a decent cut shot at the 4 ball for the top left corner pocket. I think all I put on here is just some top spin, maybe a little bit of right spin. Yeah, must have had just a little bit of right spin so I can kill the angle off of the side rail. That way I can shoot the 7 into the side pocket. And then I'm going to try to get the cue ball to come 3 rails around the 9 ball so I can shoot it into the top left corner pocket. So I do have a bit of top right spin on the cue ball. Kind of like that, but I hit the cue ball a little too hard and overran my position. And so now, right now, I'm trying to measure a bank shot to bank the 9 ball into the bottom left corner pocket. Looking good. Oh, but I just hung the 9 ball. You've got to be kidding me. Well, this is okay, actually, because I ended up giving the rack to my opponent. There was no need for him to shoot the 9 ball. He took down 2 points, but I took the majority with 8, or over the majority with 8. Now going into rack 9, I've finally made this a close game, being only down by 1 point, 39-40. Looks like my opponent's breaking again from the middle of the table. Little hop out of the cue ball, but he breaks dry, and I have a shot at the 1 ball. So with this shot here, I try to put a little bit of topspin on the cue ball to push the cue ball forward behind the 2. Wasn't really expecting to get a little bit of a hop like that, because you can see if the cue ball would have just stopped on the side rail, I would have had a shot at the 2 ball for the side pocket. But the cue ball rolls too far, so now I play somewhat of a defensive shot here. I try to just cut the 2 ball to the side rail and have it go towards the middle of the table and send the cue ball up table. I just hit the cue ball too hard as it rolls back towards the middle of the table, and my opponent can actually see the 2 ball. The 5 ball does not block it. So let's see as my opponent tries to cut the 2 ball into the bottom right corner pocket. Oh, but he overcuts the ball. Little bump on the 3 there. So now the 3 ball freely goes into the top right corner pocket. Don't have to play the 3-9 combination. With the shot that I have here on the 2 ball, I put a little bit of bottom spin so I can try to draw it back slightly for the 3. Now with the angle that I have on the 3 ball, I have to put bottom spin on the cue ball again to try to draw it over to the side rail. And I think I do have a little bit of left spin so that way I can pull it back towards the middle of the table for a shot at the 4 to go into the same pocket. Kind of like that. Now with the 4 ball, I can put a little bit of bottom right spin to draw the cue ball towards the middle of the table for position on the 5. Hit that a little soft, but you can see I'm okay with the 5 ball. I can't tell if I'm straight or what kind of angle that I have here, but I'm definitely going to try to draw the cue ball back for position on the 6. So I was a little straight in order to get that kind of action on the cue ball. And I think here I try to stun off of the 6 ball here so that way I don't touch the 8 ball. You can see the position that I have on the 7, so I can play this with some right spin. Looks like I have some bottom spin, or actually that's left spin. I'm sorry. I think the cue ball is going to go 2 rails for position on the 8, or do I just draw it to the side rail? No, it does go 2 rails. And y'all have seen me done this shot on a previous rack. I'm going to play this with some right spin and try to send the cue ball 3 rails around to get position on the 9. This time I try to make sure that I do hit it hard enough to get the cue ball to come around. Now I can just play the 9 ball into the top right corner pocket. Nothing special with the cue ball, just want to make sure that I don't scratch. And I take that rack down, and I finally take the lead. Going into rack 10, now I'm finally in the lead. Yeah, it looks like I made a ball into the corner pocket. I think that was the 6 ball. It looks like the 5 ball might be in my way to play a 1-2 combination, so I think I tried to play a billiard off of the 1 ball to pocket the 2 ball. Yeah, I think right there that was a first glance to see if I can do the combo, and I can't. So here I put a little bit of center with some right spin to kind of stun off of the 1 ball. I do think I catch the rail. I do. Okay, now with the 1 ball, I can shoot it in the same pocket as I did the 2 ball, and I think I have some, I think this is bottom left spin to draw the cue ball over to the side rail and have the left spin bring the cue ball back for the 3. And I actually think I was trying to get position for the 3 in the side pocket, but it does look like I can shoot the 3 into the corner pocket. And I think I have to try to like pop stun this off of the 3 so that way the cue ball will kind of drag a little to the left and I should be able to see the 4 ball. So kind of like that, but you can see that I overcut the 3-ball. So now my opponent has a shot at the 3-ball. Let's see how he plans on getting the cue ball back up table for position on the 4. Looks like he was trying to maybe bank the 3-ball and then draw the cue ball back for position on the 4. Nonetheless, 3-ball ends up in a good spot, doesn't have a direct path to any pocket, but I do try a shot here. So what you see me trying to line up there is to have the 3-ball carom off of the 9-ball into the top right corner pocket. That should push the 4-ball hopefully out into the open. And I think because the 3-ball missed the corner pocket on the left side, that means I didn't hit the 9-ball thick enough to do the carom shot properly. But as you can see, the 4-ball is out in the open. I did get a little lucky on the leave with the 3-ball, though, since it's hidden behind the 8. My opponent now has to kick at it. Good hit. Carom's off the 9 and almost falls into the corner pocket, but he does get safe as well. So now I'm going to have to kick at the 3-ball. So here I'm going to send the cue ball down table. I think I'm allowed to aim at the midpoint between the cue ball and the 3-ball. I don't think the 8-ball is in the way. And I was able to score that one. But the 4-ball is not out into the open here, so I'm just going to play a defensive shot. I'm going to clip the 4-ball on my right side, play some bottom right spin on the cue ball, and have the cue ball go 2 rails, possibly a 3rd rail as it comes back down towards the head rail. Just like this. There's the 3rd rail. So now this forces my opponent to go to the side rail, possibly even the short rail to make contact with the 4-ball. So he does a 1-rail kick shot, but leaves me open for the 4. Now I think I have a cut angle here to where I either draw off of the 4 to shoot the 5 in the same pocket. So I didn't hit it hard enough, so I have a really thin cut shot. I think this is similar to the cut shot that I tried to do in the first rack. So I have a boatload of right spin on the cue ball to try to get position on the 7. I make the ball, but look at all that side spin. It actually causes the cue ball to zigzag back up table and scratch in the same pocket. So that'll actually be another dead ball. So with cue ball in hand, my opponent shoots the 7-ball into the top right corner pocket. Little friendly bump on the 9-ball. Looks like the 8-ball will be going into the bottom left corner pocket. A bit of a stop shot there. Oh, but my opponent catches the ball too thick. Undercuts the ball. Whew. So, looks like I don't have much here. You can see there I'm checking about doing a bank shot using my left hand. But I do not like it. So I go ahead and try to kick the 9-ball in. And with a kick shot like this, I am not trying to come directly into the 9-ball. I do want to try to catch the short rail before I hit the 9-ball. Kind of like that, but I ended up catching the 9 and the short rail pretty much at the same time. So not an easy shot that I left for my opponent, but certainly makeable. Oh, but he rattles the ball and hangs it. And it looks like he's going to give me those points there, so that'll end that rack, and I still maintain the lead. Going into rack 11, I'm currently holding on to a 6-point lead. So I think I made a mistake on how I was hitting the cue ball. That looked like I had a little bit of bottom spin as the cue ball just drew straight back and almost scratched into the corner pocket. Didn't make a ball. Oh, wow. That looked like the 1 ball and the 8 ball went. So I think at least my opponent was trying to combo the 8 ball into the bottom right corner pocket and got a little lucky and had a billiard off of the 2 ball or a carom off the 2 ball. So that way the 1 went into the side. So 2 for 1 on that one there. But my opponent undercuts the 2 ball going to the side pocket. So it looks like my opponent left me safe, though. The 4 ball blocks my path to the 2 ball. So similar kick shot as before as I try to go around the 4 to hit the 2. And I was fortunate to be able to kick the 2 ball into the corner pocket. And then the cue ball comes right back where it is and is now hooked again behind the 4 ball. And I can't see the 3. Except this time I can't kick the 3 in. So this time I try to actually masse around the 4 ball by shooting around the right side of the 4 ball with some left spin to try to have it curve back to the left in order to try to hit the 3 ball. But I didn't hit the cue ball hard enough. The cue ball actually curves its way into the 4 ball and I foul. So now with cue ball in hand, my opponent's going to shoot the 3 ball into the top left corner pocket. Looks like he's thinking about drawing the cue ball back for position on the 4 to go into the side pocket. That's what he does. Looks like he's got a bit of an angle here, so I think the cue ball is going to drift over by the 6 ball. Oh, never mind. He hits it hard. So it looks like he can see the 5 ball. I just can't really tell if it passes behind the 6 to go into the bottom right corner pocket. Looks like it did, but my opponent undercut the 5 ball. This leaves me a shot to play the 5 into the top right corner pocket. Looks like I have a little bit of bottom spin on the cue ball. Am I just going to try to hold it for the 6? Okay, I draw over to make sure that I don't end up behind the 9 ball. Now I think here, do I just gently roll this in or do I send the cue ball 2 rails from side to side? No, I just gently roll it in. Okay. And then this looks like I'll have the cue ball come off of the short rail. It doesn't look like I have any side spin. No, never mind. That had to be a little bit of right spin for the cue ball to do that. But it looks like the 9 ball will be going into the side pocket. There we go, and I'm able to take that rack down and still hold on to the lead. Now going into rack 12, I have a 16-point lead, 62 to 46. A really good break there. I got the cue ball to squat right near the middle of the table. It looks like I made 2 balls on the break, and I have a shot at the 1 ball. So this looks like I'll be playing the 1 into the bottom left corner pocket. I think I have some left spin on the cue ball to come around the 7 ball. Just like that. This should give me a shot at the 3-ball. And then with the 3-ball, I play a little bit of stun with some left spin to have the cue ball go to the side rail and back out. Hit that just a little too hard because now I have a back cut angle on the 4-ball. So I'm going to push the cue ball forward with some top left spin and have the cue ball go 2 rails. And I want to try to get position for the 5-ball to either go into the left side pocket or the bottom left corner pocket. And as you can see, I hit it way too hard. I get hooked behind the 7-ball and now I have to kick at the 5-ball. Almost was able to kick the 5-ball into the side pocket, but I do miss, and my opponent now has a free shot at an open table, and that's pretty much how you botch a break and run. So here, my opponent's going to shoot the 5-ball into the top right corner pocket. Looks like he's going to stay above the side pockets there. Oh, he just avoids the scratch. Now the 7-ball should be able to go into the bottom right corner pocket. The cue ball will probably go 2 rails from side to side to play the 8 in the opposite. 1, 2, just like that. Even catches a 3rd rail. And now it looks like he has a bit of an angle here, so he'll probably draw off of the 8-ball, get a little close to that side pocket there, and then be able to play the 9-ball into the top right corner pocket. And my opponent takes that rack down, and we split that one again, 5-5. Now going into rack 13, and my opponent is breaking as he tries to hold on, being down 51-67. So now it looks like he switched to breaking on the right side of the table. Gets the right wing ball to drop, and doesn't have a shot at the 1-ball. Well, at least it looks like he can try to bank it into the bottom left corner pocket. I think the cue ball automatically runs into the 2-ball. Just not sure where the 2-ball will go after that. Good bank shot by my opponent. Looks like he's wanting the 2-ball to slow down so he can shoot it into the side pocket, but it rolls a little too far. And I can't tell if he's able to squeeze the 2-ball past the 7 and avoid the scratch in the side pocket. Yeah, so I don't know if he was trying to play the combination or if he was trying to make the 2 directly, but he does leave me a shot at the 2-ball, and with the 3-ball being where it's at, I'm just going to roll the 2-ball into the corner pocket. And then because of the 4-ball, this is why I shoot the 3-ball with a little bit of draw, just a little bit, and some left spin. And the thickness of the hit that I have on the 3-ball, I actually hit this pretty hard. You can see that the cue ball barely even reacts. It at least nudges the 9-ball out of the way, but then I don't really have a comfortable shot at the 4-ball. Right there, you can see I'm kind of glancing to see if I can actually cut the 4-ball into the bottom left corner pocket. But I think I end up trying to play a safety here by drawing the cue ball back behind the 5-ball. So kind of like that, but the cue ball comes a little too far, and I think my opponent can see the 4. Looks like he tried to bank it in and almost got a little lucky with that carom off of the 9-ball there, but he does get lucky with the leave as the 8-ball blocks my path to the 4-ball. So I'm going to have to kick at this like I've done before, going to the side rail. Except this time, I actually know that I could play somewhat of a kick safe. I actually want to try to come off the side rail and hit the left side of the 4 ball, so that way the cue ball hopefully hides behind the 7 and the 9. Kind of like this. So now my opponent has to kick. He can either go behind the 5 ball or go down to the head rail. He just has to make sure that he avoids the 8 ball. Okay, so it definitely looks like he's going to kick to the head rail, and he's going to come on what would be the right side of the 8 ball coming from the head rail. But he ends up passing the 8 ball on the left side, hitting the 8 ball first and committing a foul. So I've got cue ball in hand on the 4 ball. 5 ball sitting right there, so I'm probably just going to play a stop shot on the 4 ball. So with the distance that I have between the cue ball here, I do have to put bottom spin on the cue ball just to get it to stop right on contact, but it does drift a little forward, no big deal. 5 ball will be going into the opposite corner pocket. What do I got here? This looks like a stun shot maybe, so it's a bit of a cut angle. Oh, a lot of a cut angle as I had to punch the cue ball over to the short rail. I do have a shot at the 7 ball to go into the same corner pocket. Oh, good grief, but I end up undercutting the ball, and I don't even get position on the 8 ball. So my opponent has a free shot at the 7 ball to go into the top right corner pocket. It looks like he slightly drew off the 7 ball. He has position for the 8 to go into the bottom left corner pocket. What do you do here? Do you just draw over to the side rail and back towards the middle of the table? That's what he tried to do. Hits it a little hard and catches another rail, but he's decent on the 9 ball. And then my opponent takes that rack down, and he is hanging on. Okay, 14 racks into this match. My opponent is sitting at 57, needing 18 in order to win the match, while I'm sitting at 71, and I only need 4. So my opponent is still going to be breaking from the right side of the table. And it looks like he breaks dry and leaves the 1 ball sitting in the bottom right corner pocket for me. And with where the 2 ball is at, I'm going to put some top left spin on this cue ball to try to play position for the 2 ball in the opposite corner pocket. And I must have hit the cue ball or hit the 1 ball too thin and hit the cue ball a little too hard, because as you can see, I'm now hooked behind the 8 ball. I did at least score the point, so now I only need 3 in order to win the match. So I am going to be kicking to the side rail as I try to pocket the 2 ball into the bottom left corner pocket. I do make a legal hit while the cue ball flares around the table, but I do leave a shot for my opponent. Now it does look like he has a bit of a back cut angle to play the 2 in the bottom left corner pocket. That should allow him to stun the cue ball over towards the middle of the table and maybe be set up for a 3-5 combination. That does look like what he's looking at. Hey, good shot, but I think he wanted to stun the cue ball a little bit farther. Don't think you really want to take a back cut combo like this. He lines it up. He does have another alternative by either banking the 3 ball into the bottom left corner pocket or even playing a safety by banking the 3 ball down there with some topspin on the cue ball and having the cue ball hide behind the 4 and the 9. Oh, is that what he's doing? Oh, that was a good shot. I can't really tell if he was trying to make it or if he was playing the safety, but he does get the safety. And now I'm going to have to kick at the 3 ball. I don't think I can kick at the short rail because I think the 6 ball blocks the path that I need in order to make it to the 3 ball. So I will have to try to kick to the side rail. So I do try measuring it, but this looks a little funny to me. I even think I throw a little bit of right spin on the cue ball. And I must have measured that really wrong. Like, I think I was short by like a diamond and a quarter and just completely missed the 3 ball. So now with cue ball in hand, let's see what my opponent does to get position on the 4. From this spot here, it looks like he can push the cue ball to the short rail and have the cue ball come between the 6 and the 8. But he puts the cue ball a little closer to the rail, so now he's probably going to go 2 rails around the 8 ball. Pretty much like that. He probably wanted the cue ball to come a little bit farther, but this is okay. Cue ball will be going to the short rail and coming near the 7 ball. And he gets a friendly little bump on the 7 ball, so he should be okay for the 5. Draws off the 5 ball. And you can see he wants the cue ball to draw a little bit further, making his shot at the 6 in the side pocket a little bit easier. We're probably going to see the cue ball go 3 rails around the 8 ball to get position on the 7. Good shot there. And then let's see here. He can cut the 7 ball into the corner pocket, but which corner pocket will be setting up for the 8 ball? Okay, that looked like it zigzagged about 4 rails. He's now set up for the 8 ball to go into the bottom left corner pocket. Oh no, but he slightly overcuts the 8 ball. And these are actually the last 3 points I need in order to win the match. So with this shot here, I play a little bit of bottom right spin on the cue ball to have the cue ball come off the side rail and spin towards the middle of the table to get closer to the 9. And then all I got to make sure is I don't scratch as I play the 9 ball into the top right corner pocket, and I'm able to take the match. And that's going to do it for today's video. A nice, long, hard-fought match, 14 racks, 28 innings, and I was able to win 75-63. Now, I hope everybody was able to enjoy the match, as the biggest thing that I want to emphasize about this match is how at one point I was down 9-33. That's a 24-point lead that my opponent has on me. And I understand sometimes it can be really easy to get discouraged when you're that far behind. But I was able to hold it together, and it wasn't until about rack 5 that I finally caught a gear, started to catch up in points, and then eventually take the lead and then maintain it for the remainder of the match. So the best thing I can say about that is don't ever give up, even when you're trailing that far behind your opponent. Keep it together, and you might be able to take the lead as well as take the match just like I did. Now, just like how I like to do with all of my other matches, if you feel that there was something I could have done different or that my opponent could have done different during the course of the match, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below with the timestamp of the shot and the advice that you'd want to give either me or my opponent. And if you like what you saw, then please give this video a thumbs up. Maybe even consider sharing it with some of your friends. Don't forget to subscribe, and be sure to click the bell icon to be notified whenever I go live or publish a new video. Take care, everybody.